Today, we're diving into a story that honestly feels like it was ripped straight out of a sci-fi thriller. But here's the thing. It's all based on a collection of very real legal documents. We're going to break down the case of Stefan Leon Nicula, a man who claims he's the subject of a crime that's, well, it's pretty much unthinkable. It challenges everything we think we know about technology, consent, and control. I am a prisoner in my own body. Just let that sink in for a minute. This single sentence from one of the legal complaints is the absolute core of everything we're about to explore. And according to these documents, this isn't some kind of metaphor. No, it's a literal claim about a horrifying reality, one enforced by technology. So let's get right into it. What exactly is the claim at the very center of this story? Well, the documents boil it all down to a single, shocking allegation: a non-consensual human experiment. The fundamental claim is that his mind is no longer his own. The legal filings describe this ongoing ordeal of torture, all of it allegedly controlled by an external network, through a device that he says was implanted in his brain completely without his knowledge or consent. The technology at the heart of all this is what the documents refer to as a military-grade brain-computer interface, or BCI, that's also supercharged with AI. Now, according to these filings, we're not just talking about a listening device. It's a two-way street. The claim is that it allows operators to not only read his thoughts and senses, but to actually write commands directly into his brain. So you have to ask, how does something this horrifying even begin? Well, the documents trace it all back to what they call a deceptive invitation, basically a cover story for the whole operation, which was allegedly called the show radio. Okay, so the lure, as it's detailed in the legal filings, was an invitation to take part in this supposed radio show. A verbal agreement was given, but, and this is a huge but, it came with one critical condition. As long as I know all the details, yes. The whole argument in these documents is that the most important details, the implants, the surveillance, the torture, all of that was deliberately hidden. And this brings us to a really critical point in a legal argument. The documents claim that any consent he might have given was invalid from the very beginning. Why? Because when he was filling out a form for this show, he apparently wrote, "This is already happening to me," talking about voices he was already hearing. So the argument is this proves the BCI was already implanted and active before any so-called agreement was ever made. All right, so this brings us to the main event, the core criminal act detailed in these reports, the moment the device was allegedly implanted. The documents are very specific about when and where this happened. Let's just walk through the timeline as it's laid out. It all starts in May of 2022 in the United Kingdom with that radio show invitation. That's immediately followed by what's described as an illegal break-in. Then, according to the report, he was sedated with an injection to his leg, and finally the BCI-AI device was surgically implanted, all of it 100% without consent. Now, a claim this extraordinary, you'd expect to see some evidence, right? Well, the documents really zero in on one key piece of physical proof. So what did this physical evidence actually show? This is where the story takes a sharp turn, because it all hinges on a fundamental conflict, two totally different interpretations of the exact same medical data. And here it is, the central dispute. On one side, the documents claim that a CT scan of the skull clearly shows a metallic, non-biological object, an implant. But on the other side, the official conclusion from the neurologist who looked at that very same scan was simply, it's just bone. I mean, you can't get two more opposite explanations for the same image. And there's another layer to this. The reports bring up this critical medical concern again and again. See, the subject has apparently expressed fear about getting an MRI scan, and not because he's refusing care, but for a very logical reason. If that implant is metallic, the incredibly powerful magnet in an MRI could be catastrophic. We're talking potentially fatal brain damage. So let's move on to the next chapter of the story told in these documents, the search for justice. After the alleged crime, the focus shifts to trying to report it, and the response, or lack thereof, from the institutions that are supposed to protect people. According to the complaints, when he tried to report this crime to the civil authorities back in Romania, he just hit a brick wall. The documents allege that the police in Cluj wouldn't even register his complaint, and the prosecutor's office just systematically refused to even open an investigation. Okay, so with all of these civil options allegedly blocked, A totally different route was taken. The criminal complaints were escalated to the military prosecutor's office. And the reason for this, as stated in the filings, is that the technology involved, the BCI-AI, alleged sonic weapons, drones, is military-grade stuff, which would put the whole crime under military jurisdiction. And all of that leaves us with this really profound and honestly unsettling question that sits at the very core of this whole case. When one person's lived experience, backed by what they claim is physical proof, is in direct opposition to the official medical and legal story, how is the truth ever supposed to be determined? What happens when the very systems that we rely on to find that truth are themselves put on trial?